Hello. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about just overall reflections of my time in Guatemala. As you saw in the other video, the first 2 days of the training was absolutely wonderful and left me in a place of awe, and was really moved by how moved the students were, how moved the young people were. And it was wonderful because at the end of the first day of the second day of the training, I got a chance to talk to the partners and really look at and talk about how the materials could be used, what's next, and kind of what they were thinking about as far as looking at resiliency and looking at trauma healing in their own work as local organizations in Guatemala. The next 2 days of the training was for the staff, and for the staff there was field officers and program people from the Guatemala team, from the Haiti team, and from El Salvador team. And during that training, we really focused on trauma, understanding trauma, trauma healing. We also took time to talk briefly about trauma in the brain, and what that means for adolescents and youth that we're working with. And then we spent a good amount of time looking at trauma-informed spaces as presented through the Build a Bridge model. It was absolutely wonderful. They really got a lot out of it, and particularly talked about not only how they envision themselves using this material in the community with the young people that they worked with, and had a lot of ideas and questions about how they can use this fitting into their context, whether it was in Haiti or in Guatemala or El Salvador, but then really asking the question around how does AFSC and the Guatemala team become trauma informed in the office? Given the amount of trauma that they experience in doing the work, how do they become trauma informed in their spaces? The art making was absolutely awesome, and they had a blast doing it, and really looked at different art modalities throughout the 2 days. So we did samba dancing, we did theater, we had some poetry. We came back from each section with song. Some of the songs I brought to them, and some of the songs they taught me or we taught each other. So it was an awesome experience. And I think, the thing that I think in reflection that really stood out to me though was because we had to leave right at a certain time. I feel like we didn't get a chance to think about next steps in the way that I would have liked to. The good news is, because I am in connection with AFSC, that process was something that could be done and was done after I left. And then two of the people that participated in the workshop came back to Philadelphia, where we were able to continue that work, and they were able to share with me some of the ways in which they're using the trauma-informed curriculum. Below you will see some of the pictures of the young people in Guatemala going through the resiliency component of it, and then also the staff have decided that how could they make their spaces safe, how could they make it sacred, and how can they make their space creative when they come into the space. And so one of the things that they started to do was on Mondays that they would take more intentional time in creating safe space where they could talk about their week, they could talk about their day, how did they speak a blessing to each other, and to encourage each other in the space as they go throughout the week. And then once the week closes, having that time once again to come back to that sacred space, to talk about their day, to reflect on what was happening, to really listen to each other, to have clear boundaries and agreements with each other of how they would speak and interact with each other as well, and how those relationships were being formed, so that it could be a safe space for them to talk and share with one another. So that was also a major takeaway, is the importance of follow-up and the importance of looking at how the material is being used, how they changed it to fit into their context.